And hello, everybody. Welcome. It's Ed Dale here again, and I have a very exciting guest today. I'm going to be interviewing Nathan Chan. Now, I remember a couple of years ago when Nathan first started his magazine, he interviewed me on Skype, and it's fair to say he was a little bit nervous about the whole thing, and it was a bit stressful for him, but he got through it. He got through it, and now I'm feeling nervous because Nathan has taken it and bit it. He's interviewing some of the most famous people on the planet, and I really want to talk to him about all of that and his journey today with his fantastic MagCast founder. And indeed, if you hang around at the end, he's doing some amazing things with Instagram, which you just have to see and listen to. So welcome, Nathan.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Ed. I'm really excited to be here and be on the other side of the microphone.
Do you remember that interview?
Oh, do I ever? Do you remember the kind of questions I was asking you? Like, they were like, I don't know how I should position myself. Is it for young entrepreneurs or isn't it? And you just gave me all this gold advice. So thank you.
No, that's good. I'm glad that we were able to get the shakes out, because you have literally gone on to create one of the most popular magazines on the newsstand, full stop, and quite deservedly so. And I want to sort of go through all of that with you. But I always love to start these out with understanding, what were you doing before you started digital publishing?
I was working in an IT job.
Yeah.
It was a support job. Mm-hmm. So I did my first degree in IT, and then I went off into industry and I started working at an accounting firm. And that was terrible. So I moved to a travel company and I was doing IT support. And when I started that travel company, I really enjoyed marketing. When I did my first degree, I did a couple of electives. So I thought I'd go back to university and do my master's in marketing and eventually move into a marketing job. Yep. And then I thought, okay, well, I couldn't actually get a job in marketing, which was really tough. And when I was looking for a job and just about to finish up my degree, not even the company that I was working at would hire me. So during that period, I was like, okay, well, maybe I can fuse my love of technology and IT with marketing and do some online marketing. Yeah. And that's what led me to the challenge and finding you, and then landing on MagCast.
Fantastic. And the challenge, so you did the challenge.
Yes.
Do you remember what topic you did it on?
Yeah. This is going to be a real good one. You're going to love this.
No, they're always good. That's why I love asking.
I created a domain and a website called bestsmellingcologne.net.
You beauty.
And I even had in my mind at the time this grand scheme that I was going to sell people aftershave and men's perfume by writing reviews when you can't even review it unless you smell it. So it's absolutely ridiculous, but it's like you say, like the first thing you do, it leads you to something else, and
Exactly, the good old difference between deliberate and emerging strategy, which is the fancy way for it. So talk about emerging strategies, because the magazine started out. Now, it was started out called something else.
Yes.
And do you want to talk about the start of starting the magazine? And because, of course, it's called Founder Today, we should say.
Yes.
And that's spelt with Foundr. It's the trendy way with dropping a vowel.
Yep, like Flickr or Tumblr.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. Absolutely. I mean, it's very important to spell that way these days. But talk to us about starting out. What was it like publishing that first issue?
So I was finishing up my marketing degree and I purchased MagCast before I left because I went away to France to finish off the rest of my degree. And I said to myself, when I come back, I'm going to give this magazine thing a shot. So I was late to the piece. Like when you launched the MagCast and everyone was launching, some people were up to like their 6th or 7th or 8th issue by the time I'd launched, which was March 2013. I started working on it in December, and I went through many different designers because I wanted to stand out from the rest. I knew that if what I was going to do was going to be taken seriously, and the kind of vision that I didn't even think that big back then, but I just knew I wanted the design to look good, and I knew that any apps in the store, they have to look good. So I was quite I spent a lot of time looking for a great designer. I went through 3 different designers before I found the one that I'm working with still to this day, and I actually went to his wedding in December, which was really cool.
Now, we'll come back to that actually, because this is that is a great story. But talk us through, because that you identified something which even we didn't really early on identify, and I think you were one of the first to really get this, because you really did make the magazine look beautiful. It looked really, really top shelf. So talk about, a lot of people have a lot of fear about outsourcing and getting in designers and so on. Explain sort of the process of going through the 3 designers to get to, because the designer that you have now is awesome, and as you say, I think you went to the wedding in India, right?
Yeah. He's from India, in Delhi.
Which is just an astounding story in and of itself. So take us through that process. Why did the other 3 not work out? What did you learn from that process? Because now you're an incredibly, like, you've got a little bit of a mini empire going on, but take us through that first outsourcing, because would it be fair to say that's the first time you were outsourcing?
Yes.
So take us through it. What lessons did you learn, and how did you grow to find a great designer in the end?
Well, I guess the biggest lesson I learned is you need to find someone that, like, you need to pitch for a long-term business relationship. I think another thing you need to learn is with designers, they never stick to deadlines, no matter what. Whether they're from here in Australia or overseas, it's very difficult to get designers to stick to a deadline. But the biggest takeaway I found was just doing test projects and working with that person. So I went through these 3 different designers. One of them, I found that he designed a few different other MagCasts, and then 2 others. The other one that I went through, I was searching through Elance, and simple, just put up a job ad. I remember I went to one of your seminars and you gave this tip, and I still use it to this day when I'm looking for work. You put in a, question like, what's your favorite movie? And you hire someone on character. And still to this day, those pieces of advice that you gave really have served me really well. And you just do a test project, and if you go up and back, and you go up and back, more than 2 or 3 times, and it's still not the quality that you want it to be at in terms of design work, just be prepared to just pay a small portion and just keep moving on. Just be prepared to, fire fast and hire slowly. Yeah. And I just used that principle, and I ended up finding Karan, and he's absolutely brilliant, and we've become great friends, and we've got a great working relationship, and the rest is kind of history. But I've used those kind of core principles to just test, search for people looking for a long-term business relationship, hire on character, and just work with them, see how you feel, and then you can take it from there.
And so the first thing that the design was special, and it really stood, like, it looked super duper professional. What else do you think, what decisions did you make early on that you think paid off?
Yeah, the design was a big one, Ed, because I purchased MagCast. I started the magazine still while I was working my full-time job, so I didn't leave or do anything drastic. Yep. And, obviously when I started, I launched negative, and obviously my operating costs would be more than most. However, they were still under, still under $1,000 a month, and I built up the magazine to run at operating costs, and then run at a profit, then eventually replace my income, and then the rest is history, and I left my job. Yeah. So I think the design was a big move that I made. And then I think another big move that I made that a lot of magcasters today I see is they just didn't stick with it. Like, you know, as me and you've discussed, like we've got the magazine, but we've got all these other assets now. Like we've got massive social channels. We're really hitting the content marketing hard. I'm really hitting the list building hard in this past couple of weeks. I'm really, you know, creating these training products and all these other things, and just constantly just showing up every single day and just committing to just doing what, like, and I love doing this. That has really paid off because I've stuck it out more than most. And I've just kept excelling and advancing. So that was I don't know if there's a strategy, but it's just who I am. I just attack things. I think, I don't know what other
well, let me ask
early
you,
stage moves that I make.
Well, let me ask you the opposite of that question. What were decisions that you made early on that turned out not to be right and that you course corrected on?
I didn't launch a podcast. I said I was never going to launch a podcast. I should have done that earlier. I never focused on building an email list. I should have done that earlier. I never focused on having like a decent website and producing content. For a long time, we just had this very, very basic homepage. Like it was pretty much a landing page and a support page. I never focused on social and capitalizing on that, which I should have earlier. And I never thought big enough. You know, the kind of people that I'm interviewing now, like I'll tell you just one crazy story of many.
Yeah.
Like this Saturday I'm interviewing Tony Robbins on Skype. I've had in the past couple of days, Oprah Winfrey's PR team contact me because they wanted to work with me on getting Oprah and Deepak Chopra in future issues and work with me on that, you know. I never thought that was possible to pitch those kind of guys.
I've never heard of any of those people. I don't know. Just why are you playing around with all these small fry? I'm just glad I'm on a cover. I got in early. I would just not make the cut these days.
Yeah, sorry. I'm going for like Elon Musk now, Steve Wozniak. These are the kind of people that I want to feature in Founder. So I didn't think nowhere near big enough when I first started. The first person that I had on the front cover in the first issue was a stock image. It wasn't even a successful entrepreneur. So
we'll actually come back to that, and look, and you had some real challenges, and I alluded to this before. You, unfortunately, and I don't know how much you want to go into detail or not detail, but I'd really love it if you could at least address the situation maybe generically without mentioning names.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's such a powerful story, I think, that I'd love to tell. So, unfortunately, the name of your magazine was very similar to a traditional magazine in the United States. Do you want to tell us the story about what happened and how eventually it got resolved?
Yeah, sure. So that was another big mistake I didn't mention. I stupidly named the magazine not a very smart name. And that's probably why now with Founder I took out the E, because I know, and I own the trademark for that name now, and I know that no one will have ever had anything similar to that.
Yeah.
So there's not even a Founder with an E magazine out there. But I had to take out the E because what happened was 5 months in when I started the magazine, it was called something else. It wasn't called Founder. So I had to change the name after 6 months. So one morning I woke up to an email from a lawyer that said, "Hello, my name is so-and-so from Dallas State, Texas. I'm a trademark infringement lawyer. If you didn't know already, you're being sued for trademark infringement by this company. You should totally get me to represent you because I'm some hotshot lawyer and I, in fact, know the judge quite well, this and that. Please contact me as soon as possible." And I woke up to that. So it
wasn't even the actual injured party. It was some lawyer who was actually, some pretty decent prospecting chops. Actually, if you look, we can look back and laugh now, but it was a lawyer actually, and then offering to represent. So how did that make you feel?
Oh, you cannot imagine. Like, I was waking up, like I woke up that morning just to go to my day job, and then I received that email. You know, Founder is my first real business. I never thought in my life I would be sued, and I was just freaking out. The first thing I did was call one of my mentors, and he, you know, you included. You were extremely supportive, and you helped me work through it. And yeah, I just felt so horrible. It was such a bad experience, because during that period I broke up with my girlfriend, who I actually got back with, but I just broke up with her, and I had my housemate at the time also moving house, so I had to find another housemate, plus I was getting sued. So it was a really traumatic time for me, and in the end it all worked out.
So how did you get control of that? Because it's never, trust me, it's never a good day when you receive a summons. It always stuffs up the day, regardless of how much in the right or wrong you are. So how did you dig yourself out of that? Because I think that'd be a real lesson for people.
Well, like I said, I was pretty lucky through my support network. One of my mentors, he's been sued multiple times, so he
all the best mentors have.
Yeah. So he kind of just, you know, tried to put me on a level, make me a little bit more level-headed about it. And then, funnily enough, the company that I worked for, one of their high-up directors used to be a lawyer, and he was really, really savvy, and he helped me work through it all. And also the CEO of that company, he helped me work through it all as well. He's one of my other mentors. So what ended up happening was I got that email, but then it took me at least, because I had to work out whether it was spam or not. I didn't know what was going on, didn't know what was true, I didn't know what to do, didn't know whether it was a trap. Who knew what was going on? So I at first established that it was the real deal, and then I actually got an email from the company's lawyer saying this is what's happening, and then I was actually served. So, you know, I waited until I actually got served. So I got, you know, a FedEx signed off on the package, and it's, you know, you are being served. You are being sued for trademark infringement because you're confusing. You are, you know, we believe you're causing confusion in the marketplace.
Yep.
And long story short, I, you know, worked through it with the lawyer that, the ex-lawyer at the company I worked for at the time. And he helped me work through it, and we just sent quite a few emails up and back. He helped me craft those emails, and we said pretty much, I'm going to change the name, and we're going to pretty much make sure that whatever is out there doesn't exist anymore. And then they said, okay. And then they sent me some paperwork that they wanted me to sign off, and they tried to charge me a decent amount of money. And actually, I learned a really good trick from this lawyer, where I just changed the name, scribbled out all the stuff where they said I owe them money, signed it off and sent it back to them, and then they signed it off and sent it back to me. So I never even actually had to pay them any money, which was really good because they got a win. So that was the lesson I learned was, you know, these guys, they just want the win. So it didn't matter about the money. They were just trying to collect their fees. So, you know, they got a win, and I changed the name. And to be honest, Ed, it's been a blessing in disguise because the branding's 10 times better, the name is 10 times better, and it happened early on. Imagine if it happened years, you know, founded March 5th. Imagine if it happened now, how much collateral I have out there, how much stuff I'd have to change, you know, all that. Like, it happened early on in the piece. I wasn't making ridiculous amounts of money. It wasn't my livelihood, you know what I mean? So it was a blessing and a really good lesson learnt, and that's how I overcame it, really.
Yeah. And one of the great things, and this is a funny little thing, but I'm very thankful too that because it was a digital magazine, you didn't have to pulp the issues. You just literally changed the front covers. So my front cover is still in existence with the new name. So I'm particularly happy about that, so I can compare myself to all these big names. And this is something that I'd like to ask you about, because these, you know, the interviews you are getting, Seth Godin, Richard Branson, your mate Tony Robbins next week. Oprah and Deepak Chopra's people are trying to vie for cover space. Talk us through your process for getting these interviews.
Good question. So many people ask me this. I think when you have a magazine, and I didn't realize it, it took me a while to realize it, but when you have a magazine, that has a lot of weight compared to a podcast or a blog. And people take you very, very seriously, especially if you can show them that you've had Richard Branson, you've had Arianna Huffington on your magazine. So you're actually vetted. When you have some big names already, you're actually pre-vetted. So when you pitch these people, it's actually a lot easier. Like they don't even, most of the time, they don't even ask me readership numbers, Ed. They don't even ask me.
Who was your first big name? Who was you?
Richard, so we landed Richard Branson for issue number 8.
So take us through that story, because a lot of people are saying, "Oh, that's fine for Nathan." Nathan gets all the big names, and he's got it, so it's easy for him now. It wasn't always easy. So let's. How did you get that first big? Obviously, Richard saw me on the front cover and said, "Oh my goodness, if Ed Dale is on the front cover." But in all seriousness, take us through that first big get, because I think that's something that a lot. Yeah, everybody has to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, that's right. So this one I actually learnt from another MagCaster. So she, in fact, her name's San. She, in fact, interviewed Richard Branson for her magazine, but she doesn't really publish it anymore. I only got as far as 2 issues. So I contacted her, and I wanted to find out how she did it. And we became friends. We helped each other out a lot. And she actually gave me the contact for Sir Richard Branson. And that was Sir Richard Branson's head of PR. Yeah. So that process was quite easy, but the other ones I can take you through as well, because there's a lot more to it.
So in that particular case, you saw somebody who you knew who had actually gotten an interview with Richard Branson, so you were able to ask them, well, who did you speak to? Which is a very valuable lesson in and of itself, I think.
Yes.
So you're able to do that. Were there any discussions about he was going to be on the front cover or anything like that? Did you offer any of those things, or was it just did you have to give a pitch, or what was the detail of it?
So I got the phone number, and this was Richard Branson's head of PR.
Yeah.
So she was the head of PR for Virgin. So that was the person I needed to speak to, the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
All of these people have gatekeepers. They're the people that say yes or no in between. And I called her up on the phone. I'll never forget that day, because I placed so much. For me, it was quite a big deal.
I could imagine.
I was like, I need this really badly. I want it to take Founder to the next level. I need this. And I called her up, and I remember she's in the UK, and I'll never forget, I was stumbly, nervous as all hell, probably a lot nervous than our first interview together. And as you can imagine, I was just all over the place. And I remember just saying, "Hey, my name's Nathan from the magazine that doesn't exist anymore, and I'd like to interview Richard, this and that." And she said, "Okay, have you sent me an email?" And I said, "No." And she's like, "Well, please understand that we get these requests at least 10 times a day. Just shoot me through an email." And because at first I said, "Do you have a couple of minutes to chat?" And she's like, "I've got about 1.5 minutes. I'm about to jump onto the tube."
Yeah.
And I was just stumbly as all hell, delivered my pitch, and she said, "Okay, well, just send me an email." And honestly, after I got off the phone, I thought, no chance it's going to happen. I still sent through that email. It was a really, really good email.
Yep.
And I played on the fact that Sir Richard Branson's first business venture was a magazine.
Yep.
And look, I just pitched, and she come back to me about 2 weeks later, and she said, he'd love to do it. I pitched for a Skype interview, but she said, as you can imagine, he was really busy and he's traveling a lot.
Yep.
So the best we can offer is email, and I pitched for a front cover story.
Yeah.
And that was the process. Then I worked through with his team. So I, got one of my writers to work through this I guess, feature with me. And funnily enough, this girl I worked with at the company I used to work for. She used to actually know Richard Branson's daughter. They went to school together. And so she was perfect, and Richard Branson was one of her heroes. So I just got her to do a lot of the legwork, and me and her came up with questions. We sent them to Richard Branson's PR team. Richard Branson answered those questions. We turned that into an article, and then I worked with the PR team to get a whole ton of images. Once we've got the article, the images, and one image for the front cover, we come up with a title, a headline for the front cover, and then we craft out the feature, put in all the other articles within that feature, and then we give it to my designer, and then off to the races.
So that extraordinary, and I think a couple of the lessons to draw out of that was it wasn't just a simple email request, was it? It was You actually referred to the fact that look, his first entrepreneurial venture was a magazine too. That's stuff that's really, really clever, and that's really impressive. So fast forward to today. And what have you changed about your approach or optimized about your approaches now, today, compared to the very first one? So where you don't potentially have that first contact.
Yeah. A good one now that I do is I'll give you a good example how we got Tony Robbins for this. I'm interviewing this Saturday. I know for a fact that Tony's got a book out at the moment that he's heavily publicizing and looking to publicize. So I just called up Tony Robbins on his website. You can call up his hotline or something and just speak to his customer service people, and then you just say who you are and what you do, and then they'll put you through to the correct person, and then you pitch the correct person. So fast forward to now, one of the biggest things that I do to get a lot of these interviews is I find out what that person wants. I got lucky with Richard Branson. The rest, it's all been purely strategic because I find out what that person wants. I find out how I can help serve them. Serve first, ask later. And look for a mutually beneficial value exchange. So, Tony Robbins wants to publicize his book. He wants more book sales, and we've got a decent sized audience now, especially with the younger generation. And it's a fair trade. I get 30 minutes of his time. I pick his brain. We feature him, and hopefully in turn they will potentially promote us. And I don't expect that for them to promote us, but perhaps they might, and that'll be even bigger win for us. So. That fast forward to now, that's how I approach this. So I always look for what that person wants.
That's great stuff. Now, take us through planning your magazine out. Do you have a calendar, or do you have a theme? Take us through, sort of, say, the next issue that you've got coming. How far in advance do you plan it? Take us through that.
I'm getting a lot better now. Last year I was only planning a couple months ahead. This year, I said to myself, I'm going to go for whoever I want to interview, and I'm going to just back it up till the end of this year. So we've got our editorial calendar booked up until October this year now. So I just keep pitching, and I'm always I love consuming content. I love this space. It's something I'm very passionate about. So I'm always reading, consuming content. So I know what's around the corner. Another good little trick is you can see in Amazon the pre-order list on books. So you can see 3 months down the road who's got a book coming out. And from there you can prepare if you want to put that person in your magazine or whatever, or you want to interview them. So if you get them early, then it's more chance that you'll be able to interview them. So for me, for example, I've got just an Evernote note with our editorial calendar fully mapped out. Each month we do usually about 3 to 4 features per issue, one for the front cover. And I just start pitching, and I'm always pitching. It's just something that I proactively do now. and I have a list of names of certain people that I want to talk to specifically, a super targeted list, and I just start working through that list slowly but surely, and then sometimes now people come to me that I in fact want to interview, and then sometimes now I can't even put them in the magazine, I put them in the podcast, and I just keep filling that calendar, and then I see if there's a fit. So for example, have you heard of the app called Headspace?
Yes, I am familiar with that.
Yes, so that was created by a guy that was previously a monk, and it's worth millions and millions of dollars now. They've got millions of customers using this guided meditation app. It's absolutely brilliant. So, for example, I wanted to talk to him. I love the app. I use it every day. So I interviewed him a few months ago, and then I randomly pitched Seth Godin, and then I interviewed him just randomly. And then this morning I interviewed Amanda Palmer. And she was fantastic. And then
my book of the year last year.
Oh, it's great. So, and then I randomly also got pitched by one of our readers, who's like an evangelist for this new company, this new startup called thegrid.io. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't heard of that one.
I think you might find it interesting. It's artificial intelligence for websites, and they have been all over TechCrunch, and actually even Facebook have tried to buy them out, and they declined the buyout offer. But these guys all are change makers. They're all disrupting industries. So, for example, I interviewed all these people. I didn't realize it at the time, but I'm going to put Seth Godin on the front cover, and then I'm going to put the other three in the May issue as purely focused and themed around the change makers issue. So these are just random things that I come up with on the spot depending on our interviews. And I just keep pitching proactively, and I just keep working through our list of people we're targeting, and then I slot other people when I get pitches. I get so many pitches now, but just if it's a good fit, I slot them in where I can, and that's pretty much how I'm working right now.
And so it's really interview driven. So it's really you identify the people that you think your audience is going to want to know about, and you take it from there. How do you plan for your interviews?
Great question. I was asked that before. It depends on the person. So, for example, Amanda, when I spoke to her this morning, I had to do a lot of research. I had to read her book. I had to watch her TED Talk a couple of times. I wanted to know a lot about her, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to deliver the best possible interview. But then there's some people where I do like 5 minutes worth of research, because I approach it from, I don't know anything about you. Now I'm just curious and I want to know more. So it just depends purely on the person and their background and their history and how I'm going to angle that interview.
And have you found over time that there are certain go-to questions that you like to answer, that your readers like to hear?
Yeah, look, I've found when it comes to content, Ed, the best content in our industry is actionable, strategical, and tactical-based stuff. People love the stuff that they can take away and implement straight away, the quick wins kind of stuff. So I try and extract that kind of stuff. Obviously, we have a narrative behind it, but I do try and delve deep. I always try and make that person to display as a human being, because sometimes we put them up on a pedestal. But I do have some go-to questions. Like one of my favorites is, what did you have to sacrifice to get where you are today? Top 3 action items. How'd you get your first 1,000 customers from a marketing standpoint? Those are some of the questions that I really like to ask myself always, and we tend to get some good gold.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Oh, you mentioned the podcast a couple of times, and you actually mentioned the podcast in the context of stuff I wish I'd done early. Now, I'm obviously incredibly biased and a huge fan of podcasts, but explain, how do you see the synergy of having a digital publication and a podcast, and how do they support each other? How does that work?
Yeah, so at first, I always thought to myself, and it was really stupid at the time, Ed, but I always thought to myself, I don't want to do a podcast. Everyone else is doing podcasts, and if all these audio interviews I'm doing, I'll just keep them inside the magazine, and that will make the magazine even more valuable. And I had that thought for a very long time, but then I realized that I'm actually doing a disservice to our community and to the world because we've got all these amazing interviews, and I should put them out there for free on our podcast. Just create a podcast and have that as another channel. Would have you that people can find us. And it was the exact opposite of what happened. Was our magazine readers actually thanked us for launching the podcast because it actually complements the magazine quite nicely, because you can read the magazine and kick back, or you can be commuting and going somewhere and have standing up in a packed train, or going to the gym or jogging, and you can listen to these interviews on with your earphones. So I believe now that it was a really smart and strategic move, especially from the sense that I didn't have to recreate anything. I already had the content there. So right now what I'm trying to do is repurpose as much content as I can and let that content do more of the work for me that I've already done, and I guess kind of leverage what I already have. So, and podcasting's really hot. Like it's growing even more now. So I believe it's a brilliant way to build trust as well. It's amazing. So
I've always been a huge advocate, as you know, and I think at the end of the day, when you think about when you have your conversations with your best friends or loved ones, they're hearing your voice in their ear. So the psychology of that is very powerful, and I think and I think what some people and I think building trust is such a big point of a podcast, because with my nasty marketer's hat on, they aren't very good for getting people to do things, and the reason for that is that typically you are listening to them when you're doing something else. You are jogging, you are commuting, and so to try find a website or buy something, or it takes real effort. There was an app that I heard mentioned in a podcast just before I was speaking to you. There was an app I heard mentioned this morning, and it sounded really good. It was this app that you put in how far you wanted to run, and based on your location, it plans out a random running map for you, which will start you off at your house and then bring you back to your house at the distance. Sounds awesome, right? I can't find it because it was on this. There were no show notes with the podcast, and when I was out, I was walking the dog when I heard it. So I'm going to have to go back and have a listen to it, because I'm really keen to see what that is. But it struck me as a great lesson for that. Now, the other thing that you've been doing, which has really, I was amazed. We caught up for lunch before Christmas, and you showed me this, and I was flabbergasted, was Instagram. Now, I have 3 daughters, so I know Instagram. It is the social Facebook was genius buying it, because it's the social network of a completely different generation to the people who are on Facebook. But I didn't think, I honestly did not think that it would be a useful tribe building marketing tool or anything like that. So explain to people just how wrong I have been about this, and give us a bit of your background, because you told me the numbers, because it's quite extraordinary.
Okay. So long story short, I built Founder up to be able to leave my job, replace my income. We were going okay.
Can I ask you about, just before we go on to the Instagram, because I didn't mean to ask you that, you had did you have a figure in mind that if I get to this amount a month, then I'm going to hand in my resignation? Is that how that went? Yep. How did you feel when it hit that amount?
Oh, I was super excited, but at the same time super scared. I second guessed myself so often. I had to have the CEO of the company that I worked for tell me that it was time for me to move on, and if I don't leave now, my job will always be there for me. How much more validation do you need?
Yeah, wow.
Because I was so scared. Because you have this security. It's just planted in your mind by society.
Yeah. And what was the first month like, being literally having to get yourself out of bed? What changes? Are there any tips that you'd pass on about that transition?
Yeah, it's really hard. I found it extremely difficult because I was used to thrashing from 7 p.m. onwards till about 1 a.m.
Yeah.
And for the first month, I could only be productive from 7 to 1 p.m. So it took me quite a while to readjust. And, when I wake up, I can just work.
Yeah.
Just time, I guess. Just time. Just be patient. I think that's the best piece of advice when you're transitioning.
Yeah, very good. So back to this Instagram thing. Give us the background of it, the history. Tell us the story.
Yeah, so I left my job. That's about 7-8 months ago now, and things were going okay with the magazine, but I wasn't getting rapid growth. We were kind of stagnant, not too stagnant, but it was growing, but too slow. I just left my job and I wanted to grow faster. That was the plan. And long story short, about 4 months before I left my job, a reader of the founder, contacted me and said, "Hey, I've got an opportunity for you on Instagram. I have a 20,000 Instagram page, 20,000 followers Instagram page. I can promote Founder like a cover and I can get you more readers." And I said, "Oh, okay, I'll give it a try." So I paid him like $30 and he shouted out the magazine, but it didn't work. And the core lesson there was, with Instagram, you can only have one clickable link, and that's in your page's profile's bio. And we were trying to push to a non-clickable link, we posted the photo, then we just had as the caption for the photo, go to foundermag.com/iTunes or /Android. And nobody did that. If people can't click, you have to make things as easy as possible for people.
Yep.
What we should have done in retrospect was post the cover, but then push people to follow our Founder Magazine page. And then we capture them by their following us and they re-engage with our content, then eventually click on the link and off they go. So that was a fail. So I threw Instagram down the window. But then I was looking at hiring an intern to help me with some stuff. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to just get him to manage our Instagram. So I went on our Instagram page. We were at, like 500 followers. I hadn't posted in like a year or something. And I did like a couple of posts, and then I saw out in our Google Analytics, our sales spiked. And I was like, oh, what's going on here? And then for a few days I just kept posting, and I just kept seeing every time I post a spike in our sales. So I'm like, okay, well, what I'm going to do is I spoke to that guy, and I looked at that guy, because that guy, the reader of the magazine that had that Instagram page, it turned out he was from Melbourne. And as you do, like everything that I do that I approach, I try and find people that know something or a lot more than me about a certain thing. So I caught up with him and I said, let's catch up, because when I saw his page again about 5 months later, it was at like 80,000 followers. So I'm like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. I've got to catch up, find out what he knows and learn from him and help him however I can. And long story short, it led me down this path to rapidly grow our Instagram page from 0 to now we're at almost 75,000 followers in about 15 weeks. And it's been a massive channel.
You were just about to hit 50,000 at Christmas, so that's unbelievable. So it's growing even faster.
So we're getting about anywhere between 500 to 1,000 followers a day, and it's been a massive, massive channel for the magazine. And the reason why that is because it was like it's like the dream customer acquisition channel if you have an app and you're targeting young people. Like, Founders targeting young people. It's about business. So the kind of content we post is like motivational quotes, startup quotes, facts and stuff. And what makes it so awesome is people only access Instagram on their phones. You cannot post unless you're on your mobile device. You can view content on your tablet, but Instagram don't even have a proper app for tablets. You have to use the iPhone version, and you cannot post content. So you can only view content on your computer or your iPad. So on your phone, you have to post content. So everyone looks at Instagram on their phone. So if somebody finds something related to Found, like business related, and they find our stuff, then more likely than not, they just click through and they go straight to the Apple landing page, so they don't even have to jump any hoops. They just go straight to our iTunes landing page, and then they see, we've got.
So just to clarify for people who don't understand what you're saying there, so your actual link, that one link that you're allowed in your profile, is actually a direct link to the page on the App Store which has your app, so they can download straight. There's a gold tip right there.
Yeah. So I've made it as simple as possible for them to jump to go through our funnel and what have you. Yeah. And that's been a game. Instagram's been a game changer for us.
I often see this. I've got 100,000 followers. I've got 50,000 followers. I'm just jealous because I think I've got 1,000 followers on Instagram because I only post pictures of Larry. But we were talking about email lists, and you were saying you weren't building email. So give us one practical example of, because you're building your Instagram list at this pace, let's take it through, because it's not just your ego boost that you've got 70,000 likes. You're translating this into significant stuff and sales. Give us one example. Maybe the email example would be awesome.
Yeah, sure. So I was pretty much everyone's asking me how I'm doing this, so I created a course, and part of creating that course, I wanted to show people what was possible for Instagram. So I ran a test. I pushed people to a landing page. So instead of pushing them to the Apple our app page, instead of pushing them to that, because Apple can't track it for us, I just want to prove to people how powerful this channel is. So I had a landing page. I set up a totally new segmented list, and I'm getting anywhere between now, like in the past week since I've been running this test, I've had close to 1,000 opt-ins just from this Instagram, and I'm only getting warmed up, Ed.
How much? Sorry, just for those following along at home, how much does it cost you per lead to build that list?
$0.
See, that's remarkable, and that is literally, because for a lot of people, I'm tipping the demographic. Most people, like me, are not down with the Instagram thing, right? No. And it's a bit out of our demographic. But in terms of users, that's very silly, because the user demographic is extraordinary. And I think what you're doing, you are literally translating. You're building a list at 100 plus people a day from just the link, the profile link that's attached to your Instagram account. And I can think of, people who are digital publishers. If you've got a horse magazine, you could do inspirational horse photos and quotes. You could do you have somebody do those for you? Do you have somebody in-house do those, or do you plan? How do you build your little quotes? Because they're very good there. And I must say, and by the way, before we go any further, what is your Instagram, what do they call it? Call sign, username? Handle. I got it there. I got there in the end. What is your Instagram handle, so people can have a look at your Instagram?
Founder Magazine.
Right, and spelt without the E, remember, people, because it's trendy and hip. But I must say, the quality of your pictures and your quote stuff is, like, again, top notch, just like your magazine.
Thank you.
Yeah, that. And is it the same designer that does all those? Have you got a different process, or you? Different
process. I try and keep my designer that does the magazine purely for the magazine and other branding collateral.
Yeah.
I've got a guy in the Philippines that I get him to do batches. So, like, I'll give him a Word document with 100 quotes, and I'll get him to do them for Facebook, Twitter, and the Facebook sizes are the same as the Instagram sizes. So I repurpose a lot of that content. So a lot of the content that we post on Instagram can actually be found on our other social media channels. And I use certain channels to test which are the most successful images. So if they get a good response on Facebook, I'll most likely put them on our Instagram. So that's one way I get those quotes and have, we've got hundreds of them, and I just repurpose them. And then another way is I get my girlfriend to create them for me. You can use this app called Word Swag, and you can churn out some really
nice,
professional looking stuff, and you obviously just put in your watermark, and it looks great. And then another thing I do is and this comes back to a strategy when it comes to growth, is we do a lot of things called share for shares, S for S, where we get other related accounts to repost our photo, and then we will repost their photo, and that actually really helps fuel the growth of your page. So a lot of the content isn't always ours; it's other people's as well.
Ah, there you go. I've got to get your course. Where do people are people able to? Where's the best place for them to find out? Like, if they're interested in Instagram, where can they go to have a check out your course?
Yeah, so a lot of people ask me how I'm doing this, so I launched a course. It's our first course. I never thought I'd go into training products ed, but it's what our community is asking for, so I'm going to give it to them. So we just did a launch, and we closed off that launch for a round of beta testers. If you want to sign up to the waiting list, if you go to foundermag.com, foundermag.com/GetIG, GETIG. There'll be a countdown list. There'll be a countdown timer for when we are launching the course again after we've gone out of that beta round.
Yeah, I will definitely be having a look at that myself. So for sure, make sure you jump on that, everybody, because I think that is a marvelous piece of advice, and it just goes to show there are so many. I'm sure, things like Pinterest, for example, there are so many ways, but I think that the thing is to not go in there like a bull at a china shop, like most marketers want to do anytime they see a new thing, is to really understand that community first, and what content gets shared, what do people like doing, what because it really is quite phenomenal. And the fact you actually have now proven that there's a really, really legit. It's been years since you could get 100 free opt-ins a day, targeted opt-ins, I might add. I can't remember. Gosh, that's like last century almost, before, without having to pay it. So it really is quite extraordinary. And a lot of people will have just dismissed Instagram as something that their teenage daughters do. And that would be a crazy thing. Well, mate, thank you so much for your time here. Before I let you go, though, I'll take a leaf out of your book. And I was wondering, for digital publishers, if there's 3 pieces of advice that you could give them that maybe you wish somebody had given you when you started out.
I think number 1 would be look to build that email list. I think that's very, very critical. Understand that the magazine is just one piece of the puzzle. We've seen massive success with Founder, and that will always be our front-end product. That's like the face of the business. However, there's many other channels. Building Founder's much more than a magazine now. It's a media brand. We have many other channels. So, that would be one piece of advice. It's build that email list. Get really good at building that email list. Also, develop a website that's quite comprehensive, that you're producing great content on. I think that's always going to be a game changer. And lastly, just look to repurpose as much content as you can. Don't you want to leverage? You want to have leverage. So you don't want to be doing so many things. So if you produce one piece of content, it can be turned into a podcast, it can be turned into a blog post, it can be turned into an infographic, it can be turned into a shareable quote. There's so many things you can do with one piece of content. You can turn it into a slide share. So try to look to repurpose content wherever you can, because content right now is where it's at.
Yeah. That is fantastic pieces of advice. Thank you very much, mate. And to find out all that there is to know about the world of Founder Magazine and Nathan Chan, the best URL is?
Just foundermag.com.
There you go. Spelt without an E, of course.
Yeah.
Because it's trendier that way.
Yep.
Very good. Well, mate, I am so proud of you. Like, seriously, it's an extraordinary journey, and it's really only just starting when you think about it, and where you can go and where you're thinking. So, thank you very much. This has been a really useful and inspirational interview for a lot of people. So, thank you very much for that, and we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, look, thank you so much for having me, Ed. It's an absolute honour to be on the other side of the mic 2 years down the track, and it was a blast.
The grasshopper has taken the rock out of my hand. Very good. All right, mate. Thanks very much.
You're awesome. Also, just before you go,
yep,
I didn't mention on that email piece we use MailChimp, and that's double. We still have the double opt-in. Once I move to Infusionsoft, we won't have the double opt-in, and I think we'll get a lot more emails a day.
Huh. So that's opt-in. That's double opt-in emails.
Yep.
Wow. Very impressive. There's a nice little coda. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll speak soon.